chapter 3. We're about to start. So if everybody has that found, bow with me. Lord, we come to you again at this another beautiful and wonderful day you've made for us. Thank you, Lord, for all the tasks we were able to accomplish today. Thank you for the wisdom you give us, Lord, as we make decisions. We just thank you so much for that. And we just thank you again for this another opportunity that we have to come to your place here. You provided so many years ago. In Jesus' name, amen.
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 We remember when we wrapped up last week that Haman has risen to number 2 in the kingdom, and whatever he says goes. No matter what he says, it goes. It's the law of the land. And I was reading as I was preparing for this about when Joseph rose to power in Egypt, how Pharaoh said, only what happens in the throne room do I reserve for myself. He said, outside of that, he said, anything that Joseph says, go. And if you'll remember, he put a royal robe on Joseph, gave him number 2 chariot in the kingdom, and wherever Joseph rode throughout the kingdom, people bowed to him out of respect for his position. And so Haman has been elevated to number 2 in the kingdom. He's been given royal robes, and he's been given authority. Whatever he says goes. Now then, now Mordecai could respect King, so much of the study I've done, I want to call him Xerxes, because that's what he really is. But anyway, I'm sure Mordecai bowed to Xerxes and showed respect to him. But he couldn't to Haman. He just couldn't do it because Haman was a Agagite, is that right? Have I got that right? Is that pronounced right? I think it's A-G-A something.
Oh,
Agagite.
yeah, Agagite.
Agagite.
Whatever. Anyway, I think I was in the neighborhood.
Yes, you are.
So, anyway, and so Haman cannot, Mordecai cannot bow to him. He just will not do it. He's not going to do it because, of course, the Agagites in no form recognize God as a supreme being. Go ahead, brother.
The Amalekites, which came from Lot's bunch, that's where this came from. The king's name was Agag, is how you pronounce it. And this is the generations. And if the Israel had done what they're supposed to have done, this wouldn't all had to happen because Saul was supposed to go in and kill them all. And he didn't do it.
Yep.
So now it all comes back around. God circles it back.
Well, as we study and follow Jewish history throughout the Bible, it all stems back. When God gave them the promised land, what did he do? He said, you spare no one. You spare no one. You utterly destroy them from the face of the earth and from record. They started out doing that, and then they started making friends with them. And then the next thing you know, they were told to never marry them. They started marrying with them. And the next thing you know, they're in trouble.
But see, that's where the Sumerians come in. That's because they got married to the Syrians, and they wasn't supposed to.
No. And so, anyway, Mordecai refuses to bow. In verse 5, and then we'll pick it up at verse 6, it says, and when Haman saw that Mordecai bowed not, nor did him reverence in any way, then was Haman full of wrath. we'll see, it's the kind of anger that wants to kill. It's not the kind of anger that wanted to punish. He didn't want to just punish Mordecai. He publicly embarrassed the guy, and so.
But he hated the Jews.
Sure.
You know, if you're a Hebrew kid or a man or woman, he wanted you killed.
Yeah. And anyway, verse 6, Brad.
And he thought to scorn to lay hands on Mordecai alone, for they had shown him the people of Mordecai, wherefore Haman sought to destroy the Jews that were throughout the whole kingdom of.
It's called here Ahasuerus, and it's Xerxes. But go ahead.
And even the people of Mordecai.
His first thought was just to slay Mordecai.
Right.
Mordecai had publicly embarrassed him here in Shushan. He publicly embarrassed him. And so the first thought was off with his head. And then he thinks about it a little bit. Why not just get rid of all of them? Why not just rid the nation of them all? See how that when Brad read that? Haman sought to destroy all the Jews that were throughout the whole kingdom. Now they had dispersed widely by this time. There was a bunch of them back living in Jerusalem, because I'm pretty sure by this time the walls had been rebuilt, and they were flourishing throughout the nation. Verse 7, Miss Janet, you got that?
In the first month, that is the month Nisan, in the 12th year of King
Ahasuerus, yeah.
They cast purge, that is the lot, before Haman, from day to day and from month to month, to the 12th month, that is the month Adar.
Now then, Haman is cooking up this plot to destroy all the Jews. Now, for whatever reason, he has the authority to do it. But for some reason or other, he is superstitious about the correct timing to do this. And they were big in gambling to see when things would happen. See, they're big into astrology. You follow the stars and stuff. And so, if you go over to Proverbs, the 16th chapter, and the 30 something, last verse, Proverbs 16. It says, the lot is cast into the lap, but the whole disposing thereof is of the Lord. Now Haman thinks he's devising his own plan, and he thinks he's got all these astrologers casting all these lots to see what date this should be carried out, when actually he's following God's plan. These astrologers are following God's plan, is what they're doing. God is in charge of all of this, but Haman doesn't know that. Haman will eventually find that out, but at this point he hasn't discovered that yet. So, anyway, verse 8, Brother Bill.
And Haman said unto Ahasuerus, There is a certain people scattered abroad and dispersed among the people in all the providences of thy kingdom. And the laws are diverse from all people, neither keep they the king's laws. Therefore is it not for the king's profit to suffer them?
Mm-hmm. Now he said, King
Yes.
Xerxes, there's this nationality of people. He doesn't call them Jews at this point. He said there's just this group of people. They're all everywhere, all over the land. Now they're not keeping your laws. They're not obeying your laws. Now that is not true. That is not true. But it's a trumped up thing that Haman is going to do because they had been, to date, model citizens. Even Mordecai saved the king's life. Remember, just a few verses ago, when Mordecai exposed these two guys that was going to execute him.
That's how they were wearing the robe.
What's that?
That's how they were wearing the robe.
But anyway, yeah, and so it's not true that they're not obeying the land, or laws of the land. Now, and under most pagan kings, in which really Xerxes is, they elevated themselves to the point of God. Now, we've got places, Kim Jong-un of North Korea thinks himself to be God. Now, Saddam Hussein, back when he was in rule in Iraq, thought he was Nebuchadnezzar reincarnated.
He did?
Yes. Yeah, he thought he was Nebuchadnezzar reincarnated, and it was his sovereign duty to reestablish Babylon. Now, that's what he thought. He thought that. So, and I don't know, I'm sure there's other rulers. The guy down in, what South American country is it now?
Venezuela.
Yeah, in Venezuela. He's that way.
And isn't a new guy in Brazil they're having a big deal down there now?
There's a lot of controversy over that because they think he's going to try to take Brazil to that type of state. And they're pretty sure he stole the election. You know, they're pretty sure that he did.
I wonder where they got that from.
Yeah, where'd they come up with that idea?
I can't understand in my own mind, like Kim Jong-un, for instance, you were saying, I can't understand how he could think in his own mind as a human being that he's God. I mean, knowing, you know, he has to have everything that any other human being needs to survive, you know. He's got to get up in the morning and put his blue jeans
I know
on,
it,
whatever he wears.
But now, he'll kill his own family.
Yes,
He
yes.
don't borrow him to
He's
kill.
evil.
No,
He's
no.
Evil.
I think he's just saying
He already has, yeah.
Yes, he killed, one of the first things he done
That's a
was kill him,
serious.
help put him in power.
It's like Hitler.
Killed his own brother too, didn't
Yeah,
he?
oh yeah, they just,
The time that we're talking here, though, the king would appoint whoever he wanted to be second in command.
right,
And it's just like when they beheaded John the Baptist, the daughter of his wife. You know, whatever you want,
yeah.
you all do. And then also Daniel became, in the book of Daniel, he became second high in
Yes,
at that time too.
yes.
So it was no, I mean, if they come up to you and say, you're second high, you're second high.
That's right. Nobody questioned that either.
Nope.
But no one has questioned Haman's authority here. And see, he goes to the king and he says, you have this people. He didn't say who they were. He just said, you have this people that's dispersed, and he says, neither they keep the king's laws. Now that wasn't true. That wasn't a true statement. Now then, because I've never, you don't read anywhere where Mordecai hadn't paid the proper respect to the king. You never read that. But anyway, Haman has to build this case. You take throughout history. I'm a little bit familiar with what Hitler did prior to us getting into war. He dehumanized the Jews. He dehumanized them to less than human status. He called them dogs, and then he convinced his supporters that they needed to be eliminated. Now, Stalin and Lenin dehumanized the peasants in Russia because they wouldn't voluntarily give up their land. And that's why to this day it's hard for Russia to raise enough food to feed themselves, because they killed everyone that knew how to farm the land and raise food, just because they wouldn't voluntarily surrender their land.
Hitler was going to kill everybody and make a super race.
Yes.
And I worked with a guy that his mother was one of the super women that he put aside as a young child, because I had to have blonde hair, blue eyes,
The perfect.
and going to be the perfect race. And he always brings that up. My mom was a perfect woman.
There was a guy I had the privilege of working with about a year and a half that taught me a tremendous amount about reading blueprints and laying out construction work and getting it all coordinated and put together when I was a young guy. He was a prisoner of war in Germany. He said, I got shot down. He said, the first flight over Germany. He said, our plane got shot down. But anyway, he was a prisoner. And he said, but I was blue-eyed and blonde-headed. And he said, I got sent to a different prison than the brown-eyed people did. And he said, even though I was a prisoner of war, he said, I was still a prisoner, but he said, I got better treatment because he said I was cotton-headed and blue-eyed.
It's so foolish. I was stationed in Germany for 6 years. You know how many brown hair and brown eyes German there is?
Yeah.
Tons.
Yes. But anyway,
Tons.
that was a personal experience that I
Yeah.
experienced.
What do you do? Kill all
Getting to
the
know
Germans
this man.
because they have brown eyes?
He was
Yeah.
trying to.
But anyway, so
Yeah.
Haman says, listen, you've got this group of people. Verse 9, Miss Lynn.
If it please the king, let it be written that they may be destroyed, and I will pay 10,000 talents of silver to the hands of those that have the charge of the business to bring it into the king's treasuries.
He says, now if it please the king, write an order to an exterminator. And if you'll do that, he said, I will pledge right now 10,000 talents of silver.
You know where he's going to get the money at, don't you?
Oh yeah, oh yes, oh yes. Yeah, he said, I will pledge 10,000 talents of silver. Now then, I don't know in that day's money exactly how much that was, and I don't know in today's money how much money that would be. But I speculate in today's dollars, American dollars, that would be billions. That would be billions. Because even though they were captives of the nation and were gradually letting disperse, history tells us they had accumulated a great deal of wealth.
About everything they touched.
That's just a blessing God's bestowed upon them. And And because Xerxes was blessing them, God was blessing him.
A talent of silver is 75 pounds of silver.
Yeah. Yes.
He's gonna give 10,000?
Yes.
Wow, he'd have to have a lot of wagons.
Yes. Yes. But anyway, yeah, that's what he told the king. He said, if you'll write the order to exterminate them, he said, I will pledge that I will deliver that much silver to the treasury, to the central treasury. Yes, is what I will do. Now someone read verse, we'll take verse 10.
So the king took his signet ring from his hand and gave it to Haman, the son of Hammedatha, the Agagite, the enemy of the Jews.
Yep. Now he took his ring. Now then, there was only one ring in the kingdom, and that was the ring the king wore. That was the most powerful ring. It was the only ring made like that, and it would have been typical at this day and time that they would have done something like melt wax, where we lick a letter and fold it. It's considered sealed. They would fold the writing of the king up in a certain manner, and they would pour some of this melted wax, and then you'd push the king's ring down in that. And it would seal the two edges. And that was the seal. It was sealed. And I don't know what all the king's ring had on it, but it had everything that symbolized his authority as king. Now he gives it to Haman. Says, here, go. And I'm sure at this time that the king doesn't know what group of people this is.
And his queen.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, and I'm sure that he doesn't know. He doesn't know yet what group of people this is. Verse 11.
And the king said unto Haman, the silver is given to thee, the people also, to do with them as it seemeth good to thee.
Mm-hmm. He said, now I don't know who this group of people is, but you just do with them what you want to do. And by the way, you can keep all the money. I don't want it. And I don't know why the king did that way, but he said, I don't want the money. So I don't know whether he's feeling a little bit of conscience there or what, you know. But I thought about that as I was studying and preparing for this. Let's see, I don't know. Let's read the next verse before I comment. There you go.
Then were the king's scribes called on the 13th day of the first month, and there was written according to all that Haman had commanded unto the king's lieutenants, and to the governors that were over every province, and to the rulers of every people of every province, according to the writing thereof, and to every people after their language, in the name of the king Ahasuerus, was it written and sealed with the king's ring.
Mm-hmm. Now then, you stop and think about it. And unfortunately, I'm afraid our country is getting back in this state. Not everybody in Persia could write. Not everyone could read. But anyway, so it says he called in the scribes, those who had the ability to write, and those who had the ability to write not only in the Persian language, but in every language that was in the kingdom. And I suspect that for the most part, we'll just use the United States as an example, everybody in Missouri used to, we're not so much that way anymore, but everybody in Missouri would have pretty well spoke the same dialect. Not so much anymore. It's driving our schools up a wall, trying to figure out how to educate these children that's coming to us today.
My commentary said, little did the king realize that his own ring would sign the death warrant for his wife Esther.
Yes, yes. That's why I say he doesn't know who this group of people is. He doesn't really know.
And he doesn't know his wife is Jewish either.
No, he doesn't know
Not
that
to
yet.
this point.
Nope.
Not to this point, he don't.
He's
No.
gonna find out.
Yeah, he's gonna find out. And as best I can glean from history, this is about 4 years into Esther being queen. This is about the 4th year into her being queen, is when this begins to take place.
Don't they talk?
The king doesn't allow you to come in and talk to him.
Oh,
Nope, nope, nope. No, he might, he hasn't had a feast or anything yet, other than the feast when he made Esther queen. But he has, now, where got Cat Jesse. But the king has hundreds of women at his disposal. And if he wants companionship or something for the evening, he calls for one of the gals to be brought to him. Huh? Yeah, he calls for one to be brought to him. And that's just the way it is. A queen. He needed a queen. Yeah, he needed a queen. Now, I am told, I mentioned Kim Jong-un. I mentioned Kim Jong-un. As cruel and evil as that guy is, he has palaces, I forget how many, located over North Korea. And he has a group of men that are sent out to recruit teenage girls to put in those places for his entertainment. When he's at that place, they're there for his entertainment. And if he doesn't like the way one of them presents herself or something, her family never knows what happened to her. Yeah, so there's evil in the world. We live so insulated here in America. We do. But there's so much evil out there.
He likes to go down in South Korea and snuck into North Korea because they hate North Korea. And he does it just because he can.
Mm-hmm.
And the girls don't want to be there, but it's like you said, he's king and that's the way it is.
But yeah, but it's horrible. But I mention that to you because it's going on in the world. It's there. It wasn't new to these people back here. They were doing it back there then, and so it's carried on.
Yeah, look how many children goes missing.
Yes.
And the
What
United
do you
States
think
is
they do with that?
number one.
For Mr.
Yeah.
Yes.
What's that?
The United States have more women and kids missing than any other country in the world.
Yes.
Yeah, we're number
Yes.
one.
And we sweep it under the rug.
I was standing over at Walmart the other day. And it's kind of a coincidence, I thought. But if you look on that bulletin board,
Yes.
there was 6 of them up there. Every one of them was 17 years old.
Yeah,
Missy?
yeah, girls.
Yeah.
Well, there was
I've
boys
seen that
too.
before.
Yeah,
But every one of them was 17 years old.
yeah.
The next verse, Miss Faye. 13, isn't it?
And the letters were sent by post into all the king's province, to destroy, to kill, and to cause to perish all Jews, both young and old, little children and women, in one day, even upon the 13th day of the 12th month, which is the month Adar, and to take the spoil of them for a prey.
Now then, as I prepared for this, I started a comment a while ago. I was about to get ahead of myself. Can you imagine getting notice at Dixon, Missouri, that everyone of a certain race
Is to be killed.
next Thursday is to be killed.
Oh, then all of them?
And people that you had made neighbors with, had had dinner with, your children played together. And by the way, you go kill them, and whatever they've got, you can keep. And you just think about how horrible an order that was. It had been sent out. Now they said that, I may have mentioned it before, but I'll mention it again, that they had the most elaborate postal system of anybody in the world has ever had, really. And they said that it is, of course, our Pony Express was derived from this. They said that the king would have had, he would have acquired the very best horses in the kingdom, the fastest horses in the kingdom, and he had them spaced all a day apart, all over the kingdom, so that he could send out a decree, and just literally in just a very few days it'd be all the way at the other end of the kingdom. They said these riders would have rode all day and all night for 24 hours to the next station and dropped the letter, and it would have went on from there. But they said literally he could get word out. Just, it was amazing how fast they could communicate throughout this kingdom because of this system he had in place. But I thought how horrible this would be. Next week, on Thursday, we kill everyone like this. We kill everyone. We kill mom and dad, grandpa and grandma, and all the children. And then take whatever they've got. You can take it. Verse 14, Conager.
The copy of the writing for a commandment to be given in every province was published unto all people, that they should be ready against that day.
Mm-hmm. Get ready for it now. Get whatever weapons you need. Be ready. Because on this particular day, this is something we've got to do. We've got to eliminate our nation of the Jews. Verse 15.
And the post went out, being hastened by the king's commandment. And the decree was given in Shushan, the palace. And the king and Haman sat down to drink, but the city Shushan was perplexed.
Yes. And it still hasn't soaked in on the king what's just happened.
It has to people. They're upset.
Well, and from what I've read and gleaned, I don't know what you all's commentaries say, the history I've read, there was still a lot of Jews in Shushan.
Yeah. That's what they professed. They was upset.
And so they were really good friends with the Persians. They got along really good. They worked together, played together.
And I'm sure they was intermarried too.
Sure they had to. But they were, and so they're really bewildered. What on earth has brought this on? Because my Jewish neighbors, they don't cause any trouble. We like having them around. They're fun to be around. Why all of a sudden? What did they do that's so horrible that they've all got to be killed? And I'm sure they're thinking, that's over half the population in the palace town. Because Mordecai sat at the king's gate. You could see him. I'm sure the king could see him if he wanted to. But anyway, they're very very perplexed.
Charles, in my notes here, it says, in the date in verse 12, it says it was the day before the slaying of the Passover lamb.
Just so happened that's the way that fell, you know. I mean, just so happened the way that fell. Yes. Verse 1, chapter 4, Brian.
Well, Mordecai perceived all that was done. Mordecai rent his clothes and put the sackcloth with ashes and went out into the midst of the city and cried with a loud and bitter cry.
See, it says here that Mordecai, after this, he's fully aware of what's happening, what's going on. He puts on sackcloth with ashes in it. And what accounts I've read of that said they would put ashes in their hair so that their hair looked really dirty, matted together. And they would put, just like an old burlap, they'd put on like an old burlap coat and it'd be covered with ashes too and dirty looking. And that was their way of mourning, of expressing that was to express outwardly of what's going on inside of me. Now,
But he's trying to make him think he's upset about it.
you better believe it, he's very upset about it. Now then, this is a dangerous situation to be in around the king. If you go back over to Nehemiah, the 2nd chapter, I think it is. Now remember, Nehemiah was the king's cupbearer. Was what Nehemiah done. He was the cupbearer for the king. That meant that before the king drank anything, Nehemiah poured some, he drank it, and then gave it to the king, just in case anybody was trying to poison the king. It would kill Nehemiah first. But anyway, he was the king's cupbearer. And in Nehemiah chapter 2 and verses 1 and 2, it says, "It came to pass in the month Nisan, in the 20th year of Artaxerxes, the king," see here he's called Xerxes, "that wine was before him, and I took up the wine and gave it unto the king. Now I had not been before time sad in his presence." You never looked or acted sad in the presence of the king. It was a death sentence if you did. I don't care how bad you was hurting, you smiled. You put on your best smile. And but that just went to verse 2. See what it said? "Wherefore the king said unto me, Why is thy countenance sad, seeing thou art not sick? This is nothing else but sorrow of heart. Then I was very sore afraid." That's what Nehemiah says. And he goes on then to tell the king, Nehemiah goes on to tell the king, "It's because my people are living in such a tragedy that I'm sad." And we know then that the king tells Nehemiah, "Take whatever you want of the king's treasury and go back and fix what you want to fix." Yeah. But anyway, it was, see, Nehemiah even himself was scared to be sad in the king's presence. So,
And it was against the rules to wear sackcloth before the king.
to be seen in sackcloth.
And dirty like that. with
Yes,
ashes.
he was disrespecting the king. That's what he's doing. Verse 2, Miss Young.
And came even before the king's gate, for none might enter into the king's gate with sackcloth.
Yeah. And he had the nerve
To go,
to walk by the gate into the king's palace. Not only is he out in the city walking around, but he has the nerve to walk by the king's gate. And that's a dangerous place to be in sackcloth. Yes, verse 3, Brother Bill.
And in every providence, whereversoever the king commandments and his decree came, there was a great mourning among the Jews, and fasting, and weeping, and wailing, and many lay in sackcloth and ashes.
So they begin to do that all over the nation.
But
As
they're
you-
doing it for God, so God will see what they're doing, not the king.
That's right.
right.
That's right. But it's interesting, we talked about this before we ever started this study. You don't hear God mentioned anywhere, but he's everywhere. He's not mentioned anywhere in Esther, but he's everywhere. Yeah, he is. But anyway, it says, as the decree went out, and of course I said it went out quick. I don't know, I didn't take the liberty to look up in history how many days it was from Shushan to the corner of the province.
My commentary says, if his decree had been carried out, all of God's chosen people could have been exterminated, and God's plan to send his son to earth as a Jew could have been ruined. But God's plans cannot be stopped. Haman was doomed to fail.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, if you work in art, we have a map, and it's huge, the Persian.
Well, they ruled the then known world.
Yeah, it was big.
Yeah, they ruled the then known world.
Page.
And I tried to wrap my thinking around how many horses and how many riders it would have taken
Got the word out.
to go.
Yeah.
Yes, to go. And where they were all stationed, and the horses and all that had to be maintained and kept ready. So on a minute's notice you could go. Yeah, and do that for the king. Verse 4.
So Esther's maids and her chamberlains came and told it her. Then the queen exceedingly grieved, and she sent raiment to clothe Mordecai, and to take away a sackcloth from him, but he received it not.
Yeah. Now remember, even before she became queen, she had an entourage that was around her to see to it, to every need she had, even before she was queen. So once she's become queen, I don't know how many she had. And I suspect that she's recruited some Jewish girls. Come work for her. Well, I think we will see that as we go on through this.
It's on chapter 1.
Mine was 3 pages before.
But anyway, she's worried about Mordecai.
Which is her uncle, right?
Her cousin. It's her cousin.
Her cousin?
Yeah, it's her cousin. But he is not only her cousin, he's her dad. Because he adopted her to be his daughter.
Right, that's right.
So that's dad.
Right.
And dad's out there in sackcloth and ashes. And he paraded in front of the king's gate. And just as any loving child would be, she's worried about dad. I mean, it's scary because she knows what the rules are. She may have already seen it carried out. I don't know. The Bible doesn't tell us. There's a lot it leaves for us to fill in. You know, there's a lot for us to fill in. But I imagine maybe she's even being the queen, she's seen it. What happened? Anyway, But it says he refused it. She hurriedly, and I imagine Esther's got a pretty elaborate budget as the queen. I'm sure she's got a pretty good expense account, I'd say. And so she sent some of her maidens out, said, you go down there to the department store and you get him a new robe and take it out there to him. And so they did. He said, you take it back to her. Yeah, you take it back to her.
He received it not.
Huh? Yeah, you received it not. Yeah. Verse 5, let's see. Gabrielle?
Then Esther called Hatshepsut, one of the king's eunuchs, whom he had appointed to attend her. And she gave him a command concerning Mordecai to learn what and why this was.
Now then, it says here that one of the king's maiden servants, no, this wouldn't have been one of the king's maidens.
A eunuch, a chamberlain.
Chamberlain, it had been a guy, it had been one of the guys that king sent to tend her needs. And she trusts him, and she says, go find out what's wrong with Mordecai. After he refused to clothe him, she said, go see what's wrong. Next verse.
So Hattach went forth to Mordecai unto the street of the city, which was before the king's gate. Well, mine was boring. He just was walking out there.
Well, you can be seven.
Where did he go? Where did he go find him at?
Before the king's gate.
Yeah, he's in front of the king's gate again. Yeah, I mean, you talk about pushing the envelope. Old Mordecai's pushing the envelope now. He is. Dale, take the next verse there.
And Mordecai told him of all that had happened unto him, and of the sum of money that Haman had promised to pay to the king's treasuries for the Jews to destroy them.
Yes. So Mordecai tells him, here's what all has happened. This is everything that's happened right here. It's all happened. And he told him, it says up to the amount of money that the king, he promised the king if the king would let him destroy him. And so, of course, it had been changed once Haman sent the writing out. It had been changed because he told the people, you help me kill them, and you can keep whatever they've got. You can keep it. Now in verse 8.
Also he gave him the copy of the writing of the decree that was given at Shushan to destroy them, to show it unto Esther, and to declare it unto her, and to charge her that she should go in unto the king, to make supplications unto him, and to make requests before him for her people.
Yeah. Anyway, Mordecai had a copy of this decree that went out. Now Esther obviously can read and write. She can read and write because he says, take this to her. Now that I know it's kind of interesting here how Mordecai tugs at her heartstrings. He doesn't say our people.
Her people.
What does he say?
Her people.
Her people. Yeah, he doesn't say. Now, Esther, you've got to do this for our people. It says, remind her who she is. And this she needs to do to help save her people. Verse 9. Conacher?
And Haddock came and told Esther The words of Mordecai.
So Mordecai tells this Chamberlain, he goes back and tells Esther everything that Mordecai shared with him, and I'm assuming here he has the copy of the writing with him of the decree, and he gives it to Esther so she can read it in her own words. It's not just hearsay. It's not just street talk. This is real, because this is what's been written by the king and sent out. Take the last verse there, not the last verse for tonight.
Again, Esther spake unto Hathach, and gave him commandments unto Mordecai.
And then we get into Esther's discourse here. And it's really, it's heart-tugging, her discourse is. And I don't know what words I want to use, but the discourse she engages in about her trust in God, it's obvious she's not saying that, but her trust in God and her instruction back to Mordecai, telling them what to do. And it's really a beautiful reading. And the last two words in that chapter are amazing. No, in verse 16, I'm sorry, I thought that was the last one, but it's verse 16. She said, you do what I tell you to do, and then here's what I'm going to do. And if I perish, I perish.
Yeah, he even tells her, you're not, they're going to get you too.
Yeah, because somebody's going to rat you out. They'll rat out all the Jews that are working for you and working in the palace with you.
I'm sure something concubines would be glad to get rid of it.
Oh, well, we know them, at least there was some of them already that got those two other guys killed because they were plotting with them. They were loyal to former Queen Vashti, so there's already the potential of a coup inside the palace of the women. So,
but in them days, they didn't get to have a crew, what do you call a crew, whatever you call it, where they all went against him. They didn't get to do that because he just took care of it.
yes,
So if you go against me, you're all going to die.
yes. But anyway.
I'm the king.
Yeah, that was that way.
He thought he was God.
What's that?
He thought he was God.
Well, as far as that kingdom was, they were. Whatever they said went. I mean, no one dared question what a king said. And we've got men here in this country that want to be totalitarian over us so bad. Oh, they want to do that so bad. And what is scary to me is the number of Americans that would have voted for that.
Yeah, you're right.
That
Free.
is horrible to me.
We're going to run again.
Huh?
We're going to run again.
Yeah, that would vote for that. I'm just amazed. Well, so of course,
Don't work, I'll just get the government to pay you.
chase a rabbit right quick, and it's not really a rabbit. If you remember, the children of Israel went to Samuel and said, get us a king. Samuel said, you don't want a king. Yeah, we do. We want a king. We've got to have a king. Everybody on earth has got a king. We've got to have a king. We want to be like everybody else. Samuel said, no, you don't want a king, because here's what a king is going to do. And they said, we want a king. No matter what, Samuel, we want a king. Poor old Samuel went back, if you remember, and poured his heart out to God. He said, God, I failed you. I've been a failure. And God told Samuel, he said, no, Samuel, it's not you they don't like, it's me they don't like. Give them a king. They want a king, give them a king.
I mean, I have a king, he's just not on earth.
What's that?
I say, I have a king, he's just not here on earth.
Right, right.
He did too. They wanted an earthly king.
But anyway, they wanted an earthly king. God gave them one. He told them exactly what the king would do, Samuel did. He said he'll take your young men for an army. He will take your young women to be concubines. He will tax you. That's okay, we want one. Yeah. So God says, Samuel, give them what they want. Let them find out on their own.